Let's get to some of the team totals. And again, I always say if you play unders, you're rooting for the passage of time. You've got some unders that you think are playable. Let's start off with one that makes me happy as a Metropolitan fan. Already worried about the Phillies, already worried about the Braves. Do the Met fans have to worry about the pesky fighting fish?
I don't think they do. And by the way, I talked about the rule changes on my new podcast, VSiN Daily Baseball Bets. So you can check that out wherever you get your podcast content. For the Phillies, Rhys Hoskins goes down with a torn ACL a couple days ago.
Yep.
That's a big-time injury for the Phillies, who are already without Bryce Harper until the middle of the year because he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. But for the Marlins here, look, there's a chance that I'm dead wrong about this team. Their season win total under 76.5 is a play for me. There's a chance I'm wrong about this team because they have a lot of talent. They've done a great job developing pitchers specifically. Mm-hmm. They have, Sandy Alcantara, who just won the Cy Young last year, struck out the first 8 guys he faced in his final spring training start yesterday. But offensively, I just don't like this team at all. I'm really not a fan of what they bring to the table. And if you're a bad offense, based on the rule changes that we've been talking about, I think it's even more hurtful this season because the rules are designed to increase offense. So if you're a bad offense, that keeps you behind the other teams that should end up improving here. So I think that's something that's a bit of a problem for the Marlins. They have pitching injuries already from a depth standpoint. I don't know if a guy like Trevor Rogers will bounce back. I don't know what we'll get from Jesus Luzardo. But this team just, to me, I don't think they can compete in this division, and I don't think they can compete with other teams around the league because, again, keep in mind, with the schedule changes, you're playing 24 fewer games within your division, and a lot of teams in baseball are better this year than they were last year, and I think a team like the Marlins could be hurt by that a little bit. So, for me, I thought that they were a good under pick at 76.5, and frankly, I mean, that's something that they haven't done. They haven't had 77 or more wins in the last 6 seasons, and obviously there's the one COVID year in there. They're just not a team that wins a lot of games, and they wind up being a seller at the trade deadline as well.
And I do think the top 3 teams in that division, although the Phillies right now with bad injury news there, it does feel like it's a 3-horse race. It's going to be tough to get those wins in the division.
It's a 2-horse race now.
Well, yeah, Phillies out. Let's get to the NL West because it feels like a 2-horse race there between the Padres and the Dodgers. Giants thought they had Carlos Correa. Then they didn't like the physical. He gone. And he's going to go to the Mets. Then that doesn't happen. He's back in Minnesota. So what do the Giants have? Do they have enough to be a player in this division?
I don't think that they do, and their season win total basically puts them around a 500 team. I think that's kind of optimistic for this team, to be totally honest with you. They lose Carlos Rodon, who was such a big part of that rotation last year, and Rodon, of course, hurt now already for the Yankees. But, look, here's the reason why I don't like the Giants, and this goes back to all the rule changes that we've been talking about. So the Giants are not a good defensive team. They were really bad last year. I don't expect them to be that much better this year. There's a lot more ground to cover now that you don't have the shift. The second thing about that is that they led Major League Baseball in ground ball percentage as a pitching staff last year. So they were a terrible defense. That hurt them a lot. A lot of their guys had higher ERAs, and some of their advanced metrics looked better, but they had low left on base percentages. They gave up a lot of hits with men in scoring position because they just weren't a good defensive team. Well, they lost a strikeout guy in Rodon, so that means more balls in play for this pitching staff as a whole, and they can't shift now. So it's a bad defensive team that lost one of the few things that could help it on the infield, and they're still going to have a lot of ground ball guys. And if those guys try to adjust to get more strikeouts, stuff like that, the walk rate will increase. They'll wind up being behind in the count a little bit more probably. That'll lead to more power against. So for me, the rule changes impact the Giants in a very negative way. So I like under 81.5 for this team. And again, I don't think their offense is particularly good. And they could be a big seller at the trade deadline because when you think about it, as you said, it's a 2-horse race, right? The Dodgers and the Padres are both spending like crazy. The Diamondbacks are maybe the best team in baseball nobody's talking about this year to make a big leap and be a 500 or better team. The Giants are kind of stuck in neutral. And I think they have to make a decision. Do we try to contend with the Dodgers and the Padres, or do we try and kind of kickstart a rebuild and figure some things out? I think it's the latter. I think this is a team that stays under 81.5.
This is a great way to handicap it, that you have to think about teams that might be buyers or sellers. And unless they're really overachieving early in the year, more than likely the Giants would be one of those sellers to go under that 81.5 win total. In the AL East, again, I feel like it's a 3-horse race with the Rays, the Yankees, and the Blue Jays, but maybe just 2 in your eyes?
So this one's hard for me. This one's kind of painful. It hits me right here. I love smart analytically savvy baseball teams. No team in baseball is smarter than the Tampa Bay Rays.
Mm-hmm.
They have an anemic payroll. They're with skyscrapers on the payroll charts in the American League East. And yet they always find ways to compete. They always find ways to be in games and win them. Here's my concern with the Rays. And their season win total 88.5. It's a big number. I think they'll still be a pretty good team. But they have so many injury concerns with the pitching staff. Tyler Glasnow is always hurt. They've had basically all of their prospects have had Tommy John surgery at this point in time. Shane McClanahan was hurt at the tail end of last year. And offensively, I just don't love this team. I think they're a below-average offense in a lot of ways. If Wander Franco's healthy, it helps. He wasn't healthy last year, but I just think this team kind of ripe for a little bit of regression here. They've had a major brain drain in the front office as well, so I think maybe they lose some of their edges there. Still a good team, but I don't think they're a 90-plus win team. I took under 88.5 on the Rays, and it hurts my sabermetric heart to do it.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.